on the show, just like shooting up the place. But then I was like, wait a second, no one would be stupid enough to even try that because everyone here has a gun. Maybe there'd be no more mass shootings if everyone had I get the out of Florida right now. What did I just say?
While highlighting the sheer absurdity of our country's gun cult worshippers, a heckler with a, let's say, interesting job confronted comedian Gianmarco Soresi.
I was a Bernie Sanders fan. And my dad, you say womp womp? What is the nonprofit?
So I'm the Indiana State Representative for the National Rifle Association.
I don't actually know like anything about guns. I could not tell you the difference. I couldn't tell you the difference between an AR-15 or an M16 or an AK-47, because that's your LGBTQIA2+. You know? Good for you, but keep it away from children, please.
Brilliant joke from Soresi. Now, if you thought having a gun lobby stooge who collects his paychecks directly from the profits generated by our country's gun violence epidemic and cultist obsession with deadly weapons, just wait until you hear what his friend does for a living.
What do you do for work?
I'm an Indiana state legislator.
Okay. I don't know enough about politics to give a about that. I mean, I don't know if Indianapolis is changing the national conversation at all.
You couldn't script out a more accurate encapsulation of American politics than a Republican state representative chumming it up with an NRA lobbyist at a comedy show. This is exactly the type of corruption that is not only normalized but incentivized to continue happening. While ideologically motivated to a degree, lobbying always comes down to making a financial investment and expected a return greater than that initial investment. And in the NRA's case, the group bribes politicians to weaken gun ownership laws and manufacturing regulations, plus to spread pro-gun propaganda with the sole intention of boosting profits and securing their business model for the future, all at the expense of our lives.
All my views on the table. I'm a trans ally, of course. Not applause from everybody, I'll tell you that right now.
Culture war issues work hand in hand with legalized bribery as they provide convenient distractions and targets to divert your anger toward the state of the country instead of the real enemies of the American public. Ultra-wealthy capital owners and corporations.
No, I don't think it's comedy's job to convince people of anything. I think it's just our job to show you that you're full of shit. That's all I can do. I can just point to where it is, and it's up to you to take care of it if you want to or not. I have Indianapolis's whole government here at this table. You know, don't worry about trans people. Worry about fixing your mall. That's the worst mall I've ever seen in my entire life.
Republicans will always prey on any and every marginalized group they can find because the hate and vitriol resonate with their base of support, and it's so much easier to push bogus narratives and make issues out of nothing instead of actually governing and working to craft legislation that would improve the day-to-day lives of the average American. We have to keep up the fight because all of us deserve better from our country, but it's an uphill battle with people like this out there.
You know, people are always accusing Trump supporters of being violent or racist, but we're here at this Trump rally and I just don't see it.
And no gun-free zones.
Wait, so more guns?
Yep. Can't fight fire with water. You gotta fight fire with fire.
You can't fight fire with water?
Yeah. Depends on what's in the fire.
They specifically do fight fire with water.
Yeah.
The wokeism in the United States with these people that are going around saying if a kid says they're a dog or cat in school, that's good.
You think that'll stop mass shootings?
I think it's a start in a way. All that stuff.
Has that happened? People said they're dogs and cats in schools?
Oh yeah, in Illinois. Oh yeah, it's going on. They put litter boxes out for them in the schools.
I think that's not true, actually. Those are not true.
I think it is true, and I think if you did your reporting, you would find out it's true.
There's perhaps no better example to show how culture war issues muddy the waters and distract people from the real roots of gun violence and mass shootings. Ease of access to guns and an overabundance of firearms. It's really that simple. But over the years, the NRA and other firearm advocacy groups, through our politicians, have tricked the public into detaching the gun industry's profit motive from the uptick in gun violence.
School district has been hit with rumors saying that students who identify as cats are allowed to use litter boxes in the restroom. This is what you were talking about. The superintendent said it got so bad she had to send letters to students and parents on Monday. The rumor that our schools have litter boxes in the restrooms to accommodate individuals who are self-identifying as animals, this is simply and emphatically not true.
According to them, but I'm telling you, I hear from other people that go to the schools and stuff.
People point out there are 120.5 guns per 100 people in the United States. Why isn't it the safest country on earth?
I believe because the school systems are destroyed in this country now, and the behavior habits in this country has changed radically in my lifetime.
Okay, but the number of guns doesn't have to do with the incidence of gun violence.
I don't believe so at all. I don't believe it.
It just happens to be that the country with the most guns has the most gun violence.
Yeah.
Even when thrown a layup like this, the gun cult still doesn't recognize they're living in a completely different reality.
You know,
Bazooka, though? Should everyday Americans have a bazooka?
founding fathers would have liked to have bazookas.
The founding fathers also owned slaves and didn't let women vote, right?
Well, times have changed.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. Times have changed. So should there be an amendment on the Second Amendment? Because times are changing? There's so many...
I doubt that's ever going to happen.
Would you be in favor of it, though?
No.
If it saved children's lives?
No.
Don't come to my house.
Do you have any comment? What?
Come to my house.
This is the result of the right creating a controversy out of thin air and targeting a prominent member of the media along with an NFL Hall of Famer. That is, of course, New York Giant great Michael Strahan. The origin of this story?
Well, Art, to that point, I have to imagine the concern would be an October 7th style attack, not necessarily in large American cities, but in some of these smaller communities that may not have those resources.
This guy, far-right Newsmax host Todd Starnes, who fearmongers of migrants.
What's happening at our border? And I do believe that we have been invaded. That we have been invaded by a horde, a rampaging horde of illegal aliens. This has been a slow-moving invasion. But when you go back in time and when you look at what an invasion is, whether it's the Nazis invading France and Western Europe, I mean, whether the Muslims were invading a country back in the early years, it was an invasion.
He made a similarity between undocumented immigrants and Nazis.
Folks, we've got a responsibility to stand up to the Orwellian tactics of the leftist and defend liberty. Otherwise, the culture jihadist will conquer the nation. As for Congresswoman Omar and other immigrants who find that America, well, just doesn't meet their standards of living, might I suggest this? How about a one-way plane ticket back to whatever third world hellhole you came from?
Spewed this hatred of Congresswoman Ilhan Omar.
We've been telling you about Drag Queen Story Hours for quite some time now. This is an effort to indoctrinate little children. We're talking kids as young as 2 years old. And quite frankly, your local public library has been turned into a drag queen nightclub. And we know, because we have reported on this, that the intent of these drag queen story hours is to groom the next generation.
He also fearmongered about this, yet does not do any analysis on the abuse in, for example, the Catholic Church. But hey, that's neither here nor there. So Starnes decided to pick a fight with Strahan simply because the former defensive end did not do as Starnes mandated, have his hand over his heart during the national anthem. He claimed it was disrespectful because Strahan was surrounded by members of the armed forces who willingly sacrificed their lives to protect his freedom. So his behavior is not just repugnant, it's downright cowardly, Starnes wrote on Twitter.
Everybody, it's Michael here, and I want to address what happened this past weekend, and I feel like I need to address it because it's spilled over to the point where I get out of my car today and I'm ambushed by a media outlet here at my house. which I'm not proud of the way I handled that whole situation, but I think anybody out there can understand the things you're going to do. You're going to protect your family, and you're going to protect your home.
Let's pause here. Starnes' whole argument is this. The NFL on Fox pregame crew was at the U.S. Navy base in San Diego, California on Sunday in honor of Veterans Day weekend. Kurt Menefee, Terry Bradshaw, Howie Long, Jimmy Johnson, Gronk, Rob Gronkowski, Jay Glazer, and Michael Strahan were all aboard a U.S. naval ship at the base in San Diego for most of the pregame show. Of course, you will not be surprised to learn that Starnes is a Trump loyalist. He will do anything to stay in the good graces of MAGA world. He was actually, some would say, let go. His contract was not renewed by Fox News after that statement that he made about Congresswoman Ilhan Omar. But he is essentially saying, you must stand at attention with your hand over your heart because you are being disrespectful. Which reminds me.
You have to stand proudly for the national anthem. You're disrespecting our flag, and you're disrespecting our country.
No comment from Starnes on that one.
Everyone thought he's protesting, he's making a statement, which is so far from the truth. I have nothing to protest. I have no statement to be made. The only statement that should be made and that I want to make is I love the military. I've always loved the military, and I will always love the military. I do so many programs to help veterans and soldiers.
Strahan, meanwhile, would write on Instagram, "Thank you to all veterans and active service members who courageously risk their lives to protect us every day. Your selfless service is beyond measure. This is my hero. It is also my father, Major Gene W. Strahan, Sr. He served for 23 years in the Army and was a proud member of the 82nd Airborne Division. Just as I honor my father, I keep all of you in my thoughts each and every day, as we would not have the safety and freedoms we cherish without you. Thank you." The accompanying photo was of his father, Gene W. Strahan Sr.
My brother, my sister, my cousins, they all served in the military. I'm a military brat. And so the fact of somebody saying that, I'm unpatriotic, couldn't be any further from the truth.
This had a direct effect on Strahan's life. He grew up in Germany on an army base where his dad was stationed. Later in life, he would work with countless charities, including a military nonprofit called Merging Vets and Players, which takes retired veteran military members and connects them with retired athletes to help with their transitions.
I'm just sitting there in amazement, in which I'm always amazed, because I don't take it for granted no matter where we go around the world, from Afghanistan to all the military institutions here in this country. And by the time I looked up from that moment, all my five guys had their hands over their hearts, the national anthem playing. I somewhat panicked, and I'm like, do I be the fool that puts his hand over his heart after? Or do I just stand here with my hand in front of me respectfully? Which that's what I did. That's what happened. And if that offended any of our military and veterans, I apologize to you, because that was never my intent.
Co-host Jay Glazer would tweet in support. Let me tell you this. I don't know if I have a friend who is more proud of his military roots than Michael. Growing up on an army base, constantly talking about what he learned from his dad, Major Gene Strahan, and how his time there shaped him. I heard it constantly, still do. Glazer would go on. But also, with no fanfare, I personally saw him donate thousands of dollars of clothes to veterans, including many homeless veterans, as well as clothes for veterans to go on job interviews. Lastly, from Glazer, I know these days people want to be angry fast, but maybe first, how is this for a novel idea? Ask him if he's protesting something. When you protest, you want people to know, don't you? He was not just caught up in how beautiful the whole moment was during the anthem and did not think about it. Ask the dude before forming an angry mob, but also maybe find out all he's done for our our veterans over the years.
The gesture itself, he's standing there with his hands crossed, not disrespectfully in any way. So I don't really understand, like, what if we're expecting everybody to, fall in line and do the exact same thing, and if they're not, standing at the position of attention with their hand on their heart like they're in the military, or saluting like we do, or whatever that is, then they're being disrespectful, or they hate the military or something. Like, I just don't understand. I don't understand that. It feels like people are just reaching and they're just picking at something.
Former Green Beret Nate Boyer came to Strahan's defense as well, calling out Starnes and the like. The point that is being missed over and over is this. Major Strahan's service to his country helped preserve our right, your right, my right, Michael Strahan's right to observe the playing of the national anthem in whatever manner we see fit, wrote Steve Buckley for The Athletic. I think what this boils down to is the right wanting everyone to fall in line with nationalism when we shouldn't. It is our rights that they want to take away. And if Starnes is going to get upset about Michael Strahan paying attention, standing at attention, being silent, respecting the anthem, facing the flag, doing everything that is right and holy in their world, except for having his hand over his heart. I just have to say, where were you when your leader did not do the same? Where were you when there are countless sports fans, countless, as I've said before, taking a dump during the national anthem, buying beer during the national anthem. Jerry Jones saying, hey, if you're on this team, when the anthem plays, you toe the line. Yet when the national anthem played, he was seen with his hat on. That's interesting, isn't it? Where were y'all? So this is my big problem with Elon's platform and why I have contemplated leaving for so long. It's because there are drummed up controversies and stuff that will go viral that shouldn't. They have, and this is the scandal that is not talked about, they have tweaked the algorithm to favor MAGA. The reason why Trump is kind of hinting towards not instituting a TikTok ban is because the algorithm also swung in their favor. It is about control at the end of the day. And that is the message that they continue preaching, even if they don't abide by their own set of standards.
Deadly mass shooting at the University of Virginia. Students and staff ordered to shelter in place.
Horror at the University of Virginia after a suspected student gunman opened fire, killing 3 members of the football team.
They were great men, great young athletes. I was just figuring it out. Just gotta stay together and uplift each other.
Another day, another mass shooting in the United States of America.
We thought he was going to shoot everyone in the bus at that point. He was like, you guys are always messing with me. He said something weird like that. But it was very bizarre because they didn't talk to him the whole trip.
Evan Chandler, Lavelle Davis Jr., and Deshaun Perry, 3 collegiate football players on the UVA roster, lost their lives in the shooting. Students on campus paid their respects in Charlottesville to an American problem that the country simply does not resolve. When gun rights activists advocate for freedom, is this what they mean? Nearly 2 years ago to the date, we reported on the tragic deaths of 3 University of Virginia football players.
Feels like it's a nightmare, to be honest with you, and I'm ready for somebody to pinch me and wake me up and say that this didn't happen.
Head football coach Tony Elliott was in a state of shock following the tragedy, echoing the same feelings felt across campus and in the local community.
The UVA football team expressed its heartbreak in a tweet saying, quote, "There are no words to describe this tremendous loss to our UVA football family." Their coach calling them incredible young men with huge aspirations and extremely bright futures.
The 3 dead students were all football stars. Wide receiver Devin Chandler, 6'7" Lavelle Davis had a shot at playing in the NFL. Linebacker Deshaun Perry from Miami is number 41, another football player. Running back Mike Hollins was wounded. The accused shooter is also a former member of the football team. He was recruited in his freshman year but never played.
Police have identified the suspect as University of Virginia student Christopher Darnell Jones Jr. The 22-year-old was a freshman on the UVA football team in 2018 but did not play in any games. Police said Jones was arrested about 75 miles outside the Charlottesville campus.
The alleged shooter's father would speak to the media following his son's arrest, and that followed an hours-long manhunt, making this alarming admission.
He had some problems the last time I talked to him. He said some people were picking on him or whatever. He didn't know how to handle it, and I told him, just go to school. Don't pay it any mind, the father said. He was really paranoid when I talked to him about something, but he wouldn't tell me everything. He was a very sensitive young man. Jones was convicted in 2021 of a misdemeanor concealed weapons violation and received a 12-month suspended sentence and a small fine, UVA spokesperson Brian Coy's statement said. Jones didn't report the case to university officials as required, per UVA Police Chief Tim Longo.
Jones was also reportedly involved in a hazing investigation that was eventually dropped after witnesses reportedly would not cooperate with the police's investigation.
Now, Jones faces charges of second-degree murder, weapons charges, malicious shooting, and wounding charges. As we have said, 3 football players were shot dead and 2 other students were injured. One of those injured was a football player. I want to mention that the suspect, Christopher Darnell Jones, who was seen over video conference, didn't show any emotion as we heard these new details. One claim by a witness said that Jones began shooting, and it seemed like it was intentionally aimed. And one detail claimed from a witness that one of the football players, Devin Chandler, was shot on the bus while he was asleep.
I knew we had to, get off that bus because it could get a lot worse. Me and another teammate were the only 2 to get off the bus. Mm-hmm. And I turned back and I look over my shoulder and I realized, we're the only 2 running. I didn't really think much in that moment. It was just literally an instinct and a reaction to go back.
You say you were 3 or 4 steps on the bus.
Yeah.
You see him coming off the bus.
Yeah, and it was, he was just so close, and I felt so hopeless and so powerless in that moment.
Did he say anything?
Nothing at all. He just, we locked eyes, and that was it.
Michael Hollins Jr., the 4th football player who was shot but thankfully survived his injuries, shared his experience with Michael Strahan on Good Morning America just a month after the shooting took place.
I felt him hit me in my back, but I knew I wasn't going down without a fight, and I found a pre-med student, and that was God again. She was there to help me. She kept me calm, kept my breathing under control. Was checking my pulse and until the ambulance came.
And if you could say something to the shooter, what would you say to him?
I just would love to ask if he knew the magnitude of his actions in the moment. Like if he ever thought how many people will be affected for the rest of their lives.
As previously mentioned, we are now a full 2 years removed from this tragedy, and despite authorities still not releasing a motive for Jones Jr.'s actions, we do have an update to share. Christopher Darnell Jones Jr. has just pled guilty to 3 counts of first-degree murder, 2 counts of aggravated malicious wounding, and 5 counts of the use of a firearm in the commission of a felony. He now faces 5 life terms with an additional 23 years in prison. He is scheduled to be sentenced in early February 2025. In a statement to ESPN, the family of Deshaun Perry said, "We sat eye to eye with the defendant as he pled guilty to all charges, calling on the public to join them and the other surviving families at Jones Jr.'s sentencing trial a few months from now." University of Virginia President Jim Ryan would also release a statement saying, quote, "Today's proceedings represent another step in the lengthy and painful journey for the families of the victims and for our community. We continue to grieve the loss of 3 beloved members of our community and the injuries suffered by others on the bus. We will keep you all updated as the story continues to develop, as we await the university's release of their independent investigation into the shooting and Jones Jr.'s background for a possible motive."